Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Talking Habs, the video podcast. Hope you're all ready. So today I'm going to answer questions that I've received from the last one in the comment section. So let me just say that leave your questions in the comment section for next week's podcast, and I will try to answer them. Um, Try to make them, if you can, try to make them for something that's not for like if you're answering today or when you watch it, if it's this is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2019. So if you're watching it in a couple days, make sure it'll be something that I can talk about the next week because I'm doing this every Wednesday. That being said, I would love some questions about the 70s and 80s, which was really my era growing up. So anything you guys want to know about the 70s and 80s, ask some questions. If I can answer them, I will. If I have to do a little research on it, I'll do that on those questions because maybe you'll ask something that I don't know about. But try to, in the 70s and 80s, I'm pretty good. Um, Last week, since the last podcast, the Habs had 3 games. They played the Minnesota Wild that day that I was, no, the next day. I filmed on a Wednesday. I think it came out on Thursday, though. Um, yeah, so they beat the Minnesota Wild 4-0, and a 45th shutout for Carey Price, which puts him in, I think, third place overall. Who's ahead of him now? I know it's George Hainsworth has 75, and there's somebody with 58. I'm not sure if it's, I would think it's Jacques Plante, but maybe not. So he's third overall. He'll probably get to second. I doubt he'll get to first. So they beat Minnesota 4-0. They went on to beat St. Louis on that was on Thursday, so Saturday 5-3, 5-2. In Okay, the Minnesota game was at home. St. Louis game was in Minnesota, so they had played St. Louis the week before and beat them 6-3, and they went into St. Louis and they beat them 5-2. Pretty dominating game that game was for them, as it was with Minnesota. Minnesota, though, was have to give them this. They started the season with their first 7 games, playing only 1 game at home, so they had 6 games on the road to start the season. Not great, even though I'm not saying they're a great team or anything, but you have to take that into account. I think Montreal still would have beat them at home, but maybe they would have scored a goal or two. Then they went into Minnesota the following day, so they had back-to-back Saturday and Sunday, and they lost to Minnesota 4-3, and in a game that it looked near the end that Montreal was going to win. Definitely Minnesota came out. They wanted revenge, and they played pretty good. And they didn't allow Montreal to play their game. Montreal could not establish their game of skating and speed and skill. And Minnesota kind of kept them on their heels, and their power play wasn't great and all that. Or no, maybe they got 2 goals. This one power play I think was still good, but so was Minnesota's, and the penalty kill was a problem there. So it's worrisome for me their record a little bit to start the season, and this is why. Um, they haven't really proven themselves against good, strong opposition, and here's what I'm saying. Um, Next week, okay, first of all, Minnesota, like I said, coming off, having a long road trip to start the season. Yeah, I know it's the start of the season. The guys should be have more energy for that and all that. But playing on the road in the NHL is not easy to be winners, right? So they lost a lot, and once you start losing, you get disheartened, and it's harder to play. So you have that. They beat a St. Louis team twice in 8 days, 2 Saturdays in a row, and the St. Louis teams have been on a bit of a downswing right now. They're having a bit problems, I think, scoring. It's not just against Montreal. They were on a 3-game losing streak, I think, on the Saturday game, and Montreal. So it was a 4 game because Montreal beat them. So you have to take that into account. Minnesota then beat them the next day. Yes, they were maybe a little bit fatigued. The legs weren't completely there, although they looked pretty good most of the game. But you can see that I think the back-to-back games definitely affected them. Plus, they're on the road. Plus, Minnesota definitely wanted to win to make up for the last game because Minnesota hadn't played since the 4-0 loss. So they, when you lose like that and then your next game's against that team at home, you're definitely going to want to win. And they did. So Montreal wasn't able to hold them off. I mean, that in itself is not worrisome. But then take a look at their record up to now, up to those games. They opened the season in Carolina. They lost 4-3, granted in a shootout. Um, with Toronto, they beat them. It was a tough game, but it's turning out Toronto might not be. I'm not sure. I'm not really following Toronto, but they're winning and losing. They're up and down. It's not a strong Toronto team. Although look, Matthews, although they're good, I'm not taking anything away. Speaking of Toronto, was it Mitch? They got a penalty shot in overtime against them. I don't know how that happens. Then they played Buffalo, which is a very strong team. Buffalo was on their, I think, fifth game or something like that. Montreal was playing their third game. And even though it was a 5-4 loss in a shootout, I thought Buffalo pretty much dominated them most of that game. So against a very strong team, because Buffalo's turning out to be a pretty strong team this year, they didn't do that well. They weren't that impressive. And then they played Detroit, I believe at home, and they lost 4-2 against a Detroit team that was on a good roll at the time. But Montreal definitely should have beaten them, and they didn't. Detroit kind of outplayed them, I thought, all game. Next up was the win against St. Louis at home. Again, a St. Louis team that was starting to struggle. Um, so, and then they played Tampa Bay. Now, if you take a look at some of the stats, they outplayed Tampa Bay, yet Tampa Bay won. And Tampa Bay kind of really looked like they were the better team. So, this is why it's worrisome. Yes, they're not doing bad right now, but what happens in a few more weeks when everybody's in real good game shape and all that kind of stuff, and the games are getting better? Can Montreal also step up? I think they can, but it is worrisome, and it's just something I wanted to talk about. So that we're all Habs fans, and we kind of see the team through rose-colored glasses, and reality has to set in at some point. And I'm not taking anything away from the team. I love the way the team is set up, and I'll kind of prove that I'm happy with this team with some of the subjects we'll talk about. So I just wanted to go over that. Also, before I forget to say this, I'd like to know any kind of topics for videos you guys would like to see me tackle. So any ideas you might have, or you're saying, geez, I'd like to see Rick do this, or what his opinion on that, or I'd like to see a video about that, let me know in the comment section, and if I can do it, I will do my best to accommodate your ideas and do some videos, that you guys want to see me doing. So if you can, in the comment section, that'd be great. Also, don't forget your questions. Any questions? If you have a question and an idea, let me know that they're different, so I don't try to put your idea as one of the questions because I didn't get the what you meant. That would be great. Now let's get into you guys' questions. So I have questions that were left on in the comment section last week, and I'm going to see what I can do to answer. Some are they're different kinds. Some very serious, and a couple of lighthearted ones. And we're going to start with that. So Jason LeBlanc asked me. Some of them I took editorial license in that I wanted to make it a little more clear when I'm saying them, so I rewrote them. But it's the essence, definitely, of your question. So if you don't comment, please, that hey, you changed my question. I didn't really. I just changed the way it's worded. So Jason asked me. It was a little longer, but I broke it down to this. Can't we pull a stat? No, maybe it was exactly. I might have wrote your question exactly, but a few of them I didn't. Can't we pull a Stastny brothers evacuation, in quotation marks, to bring Romanov here? For any of you younger people, you might not understand that, but the Quebec Nordiques, I'm not sure what year, but it was back pretty much pre-Russia and all that, players coming over. Players could come over, but they had to be kidnapped and taken out of there. And that's kind of what they mean, because I guess it was the Nordiques. I don't know how it happened, but they basically smuggled the Stastny brothers and their wives and kids out of the country and brought them to Canada, and that's how the Nordiques got them. So they defected, because back then you still had to defect. And I guess that means it's in the 70s, because I guess by the 80s they were starting to come over. So, yeah, so that's what he means. And can we do that with Romanov? No, we can't, because obviously things are different and it's just not the same. If they did that, they'd never get a KHL player again, pretty much. They don't have any agreements. So you do that, it's like, they're not, it's not going to be good. So no, we can't, but it is funny because I wish we could and get him here right away, but that's what he meant by the evacuation. When you look back, in the day when it happened, it didn't seem like it was anything weird because we weren't friends with Russia back then. And if you look back at it today, and it just seems comical. That's what they had to do to get a player out. I'm not used to wearing these. Sorry, my ear is itchy. I'm wearing these because I want to see if this will drown out any more of the external sounds, and it's kind of more podcasty. Okay, next up. Next up is Habs fans for life, number 13. Do you think Montreal will ever improve their power play? Now, he asked this just before Montreal actually went on to do a lot better on their power play, and they did make some adjustments. So I left it in because, first of all, I think I only had enough questions to do. I'm hoping for more next time, but they did improve the power play, and I think the way they did improve it was by giving Jeff Petrie, instead of putting Weber out there, looking for that shot. Always, everyone's looking for that shot. They key on it, and it's not effective. They've adjusted, and Petrie's now the first wave. They've adjusted with some of the personnel on the first wave, and they leave them out a little longer. They're reducing Weber's ice time, and it's working because they've had 4 or 5 power play goals. Just one game where they didn't get a power play goal. So the power play is way better. You can see it in the way they're working harder down low, which opens up seams in between the point and the guys down low, which you're noticing they're using a lot more cross ice passes that catches they got to slide over and there's a guy open because of course they got the power play, they got the extra guy, and it's working. So you keep the defense busy down low, and it opens up the middle where the slot is for a passing lane. And it's working. Whatever it is, it's working. I know that's one thing they're doing. And it's the change of personnel and Petrie out there is making a huge difference. Petrie obviously now is the number 1 defenseman on this team. The pairing of Petrie and Kulak is the number one pairing on this team. It's proven out by their ice time and the responsibilities they're getting. And look, Kulak and Petrie put together again was great. I don't think anyone can argue that because Kulak can play with anybody. Kulak is turning into, without a doubt, a top 4 defenseman on this team. And look, Sherratt, even though we're paying him $3.5 million, he's fitting in well as a third. That third pairing defenseman seems to be where he's comfortable here. It might change, and he'll be able to play up higher down in the season, but right now he's definitely looking way more comfortable and more effective in that third pairing role. Okay, next question. On the next page, Glenn Way. So it's Way, W-A-Y-E. Do you think the Habs are in trouble when it comes to scoring? No, this I don't. The scoring is not a problem. You can look at the scores. Well, I wrote them down here. So look at the scores. They're scoring. There's one game, Tampa, where they only scored 1, but it's the only game where they scored 1. They had a game with 2, a game with 3, and then everything else is 3 or more. So scoring is there. That's not a problem. And they're near the top of the league in the scoring goals per game. So they were 8th or 9th last week. Or the last game I did, I give those stats in the preview, and they're at the top of the league, so scoring is not a problem. Does it last? I don't know, but I think so because look at that first line of Danault, Galley, and Tatar. Those are guys that work hard. Even if they're on a bit of a slump, they work hard and they work their way through it. So they are the number 1 line on this team. It's proven in the point production, and just everything they do. They're smothering on offense, on defense. It's a great 2-way line, and they look better than last year. Danault looks better than last year. Tatar even looks better than last year, and Galley is Galley, but he's scoring right now, I think, at a bit of a higher pace than he normally does. So we'll see if he improves and gets up to the 60-point plateau. So scoring problem? No, I don't think so. Next question, Staxers. Staxers is next up on the list. Does it concern you that with Shea Weber's age, that his endurance and need for reduced time will affect Montreal's chances to become a contending team? Um, I would have to say last year, yeah, that would have. I would say that was a worry. This year, it's not for this reason. Just look at the guys that are going to be coming up in the future. Just take a guy like Norlinder, who, if you go and research, you look on Twitter. There's a lot of stuff about him. They're just rave about this kid, how he's progressing this year way beyond what they even thought he would do. So you got a kid like that. You got Johnny Fairbrother doing the same thing over here in North America. Um, no, I'm not worried because by the time Shea Weber is not effective anymore, we have Romanov's coming in. Juleson, we don't know how good he's going to be. We have we're going to be good for defense and set. I don't, and that's why I don't think Vlasic. There's no need to bring in a guy like Vlasic, who's pretty much another Shea Weber. We don't need two of them right now, and I don't think at his age it's going to make a difference in the next couple of years because of the guys that are coming up in the next couple of years. So no, it's not a. It doesn't concern me. That does not concern me. Shea Weber, listen, look, he's going to start. He's on a bit of a decline. He needs less ice time. He needs less responsibility. It's going to be better off for him, for the team overall, and we still have his leadership, which you cannot put in doubt. Okay, so that's number 4. Number 5. So number 5 comes in from um, Renegade Man 83. Do you think Victor Mete is a top 4 defenseman and fits his role as top pair with Weber? And then it's a second part of is what is my opinion of Cale Fleury right now? So first off with Victor Mete, no, I don't think Victor Mete is a top pairing defenseman. I think Victor Mete actually is a good defenseman to play with Weber because of the speed, the wheels he's got. He gets into the corners. He digs the pucks out. He gets back if Weber can't. And I think Victor Mete is a damn good defenseman that's still coming into his own. He's only 21. Um, I don't think there's anything that you can say looking at Mete and say, well, he's a little small. That's it. That's it. But I think he uses it well, and I think we're going to see a lot more from Mete this year. But is he a number 1 pairing defenseman? No, that I agree with. Is he the best guy that's on the team right now to play with Weber? I think so. But as a second pairing, I would have put Kulak with Weber. If you want to keep Weber in the first pairing, I think Kulak will help Weber more than Mete can as a first pairing defenseman. But as a second pairing defenseman, I think Mete and Weber are fine together. So, yes, Mete maybe isn't fully a top 4 defenseman right now, but I think his ceiling is definitely a top 4 defenseman. My opinion, and look, I could be wrong. It'll be proven out down the road. By the way, see my nice Christmas ornament? It is Montreal Canadiens puck. Okay. On Cale Fleury. It was a little worrisome the first 2, I think he played 2 games, and then he sat out for 3. When he came back, I thought way improved, starting to see what Cale Fleury can do. He doesn't really look afraid to do things, to make plays, to make hits, to do. I like that. I think, yeah, I like what I'm seeing from Cale Fleury right now. Will that go through the whole season? He's a rookie. He'll have trouble through the season here and there. But, then you sit him for a bit, and then you bring him back. And it looks like when you sit him, he takes it to heart as far as, okay, I need to get better. He concentrates on it, and he got better in the 3 games he sat, my opinion, because he looked pretty good in those last 2 games he played, I think. So I'm very happy with Fleury playing with Sherratt. I didn't think it would work, really. When they first paired him up, I said I didn't think it would work. But he's definitely proving to be better than Folan. Better with the body, being physical. He seems a lot better, and I think he's got more offensive upside than Folan, definitely. So very impressed with Fleury, but don't expect that Fleury can play every single game. I don't think so. You're going to have to sit him here and there. But yeah, right now, very impressed with Fleury. Okay, next up is funny because he's quickly becoming one of my favorite subscribers because of his sense of humor. It's an aggressive sense of humor, but I understand that. And okay, so this is from Habination. And I'm going to try to get all three. I think all three of your questions. I didn't pick one. I'm taking them all. First, Habination. Now, I am definitely taking editorial license, buddy, on this, but I'm going to get to the essence of your first question without being. I edited it. Let's just say that. Okay, so, and I wrote next to it for fun because you wrote this was for fun, but I think the other two questions you were more serious, and I'm answering all three. So, in essence, he said, and he didn't say this guy's name as nicely as I'm going to say it, but this is what he said. Will Coach Claude Julien ever make the playoffs with the Habs? I think he will. With Claude Julien, okay, in the next question after this one, or I'm going to answer one more then after, I'm going to talk about something why I think people aren't understanding Claude Julien. But I do think Claude Julien will make the playoffs, and I do think it'll be this year. But I'll leave out this. They may be just close like last year, and it's possible they don't make it. But that's just a stepping stone. This team is getting better. Nick Suzuki is coming along. Imagine next year. And next year we should have Cole Caulfield. So when I think this team looking good. So, saying that, yes, I think he'll make the playoffs this year. And yes, I don't think he's going to get fired. He will make the playoffs. So going on to his next question, will he be fired before Christmas? No, I don't think so. I think the Habs, they would have to have a total breakdown for 10, 15 games where they don't, like maybe one or two wins. And I don't think that's going to happen. This team is a good team. And he's handling it, I think, pretty well, even though there's a lot of criticism. But I'm going to explain why I say that kind of in the next question, because his Habination's third of the three that he asked me is, would Joel Bouchard be a better option than Claude Julien? And I kind of say no. And there's a lot of veterans on this team that are doing quite well, and I don't think they need a coach like Bouchard, who is more of a developmental coach. He's a great developing coach. He's great in the AHL because you can send your guys there. He's working the same system the big team is working. He's teaching them how to be professional hockey players, not just how to do things on the ice. He's more than that. So I think that he's in his right position. I think he's really happy where he is. Maybe one day he might aspire to be a big league coach. But I don't know. I think he's in the right place. And we have kind of a developing team. But if you want them under Bouchard, then have them play in Laval for a season or two. And then they'll be ready for up here. And listen, Julien's won the cup. It's not like he's an unsuccessful coach. And I find this year he's starting to learn to adapt. So that brings me to, I'm done with Habination right now, but thanks for the question, buddy. I love your questions. They're funny, even if they're aggressive. They're still funny, and it's not like you don't know what you're talking about either. It's not like they're dumb questions. So, yeah, send them in, buddy. And like I said, quickly becoming some of my favorite questions. You're one of my... So don't stop watching. That's an order. Okay, so next up is from Jason LeBlanc, and it is basically about... It's a little different, but it's about the subject we just talked about, and it's Jason LeBlanc's second question. Thanks for the questions. They're good. I put him in. Does Claude Julien's history with young players make him the right guy for Montreal right now? That's a very good question because it's a legitimate question. His history with younger players isn't great. It isn't great even here, but watch how he's handling Suzuki and Cale Fleury, and then tell me that maybe Claude Julien isn't adapting. Because look at what they've said about the way he put Suzuki on the fourth line, that he's going to waste him away and he's going to ruin him and blah, blah, blah. Do you think Nick Suzuki is ruined? And Nick Suzuki just got promoted. His next game, he will be on the second line again. But look what putting him back on the fourth line did for him. If you watch my videos and you see, I've said it before that the game looks like it was a little fast on the offense for Suzuki. He was doing fine defensively. That was not a problem. But he seemed to be, when the puck came to him, he was getting rid of it almost like he was, I won't say afraid, but tentative. And I've played a little bit of seniors hockey. I'm not great, but I've played a little bit, and I know that feeling without a doubt, and I recognized it in him. And then what happened, he had put him on the fourth line, still happening, and then he scored a goal. Because on the fourth line, he was starting to show flashes. It was starting to come around. And then he scored a goal. And what happened when he scored a goal? The game slowed down for him. Not fully, because he's not where he needs to be or where his ceiling is, but the game slowed down to the point where now he has confidence. He knows he can take a few strides with the puck and look around, make a play. And he started to make plays. He was put on the power play. He's starting to look good on the power play. He's out there on the penalty kill. He's an overall going to be an overall great player. So and I'll say this, just sidebar for a second. I've thought Nick Suzuki's ceiling could be over 100 points, but if you put into the fact that he might be also really good defensively, it might be a little less because he's going to play a lot on the PK and in defensive situations. But his potential from a defensive situation to get the puck and turn it to, transition it into offense it's unknown. I'm off track. I think he's handled Nick Suzuki quite well. And he's promoted him back to the second line because he's obviously responded. And that's how you handle young players. And look at Cale Fleury. Just talked about him. He wasn't doing great the first couple of games. They didn't demote him. What did he do? He sat him. He didn't bench him. He didn't dress him and then bench him and humiliate him. He sat him for 3 games and brought him back. And it's a player that responds. If you have the right player, and Suzuki and Cale Fleury look like they're the right kind of players, they're called coachable. And you can sit them and they'll learn because they'll say to themselves, look in the mirror and say, okay, I need to do something. I got to concentrate on this and that and that. And they do it. And they have talent. They have to have talent as well. So I think he's doing really well because Cale Fleury's come back and he's responded with a couple of great games for a 20-year-old rookie defenseman. So, I think Claude Julien has evolved. And look, coaches evolve, people evolve. I evolved. I used to be married and I've got kids and all that. I wasn't the greatest husband. I wasn't the nicest guy. But when I got separated, I learned. I had to look in the mirror and say, hey, I got to get better. And I did. And it's the same thing because that's what it is. You bench a guy, you demote him to a lower line, you're sending a signal without being nasty about it. Nasty about it is benching them for their half the game, talking about them in the press in a bad way. He doesn't do that. So I think he's evolved. I really do. I think he's evolved as a coach, and I don't like if we have to have a French coach here, and it has to be. It's not to say there's no better coaches than Claude Julien. There are, but we have to have a French coach. So right now, is Claude Julien probably the best French coach out there? Probably. I mean, tell me in the comment section any coaches you think that could qualify here because of the goddamn stupid thing that we have to have a French coach. Or a coach that can speak French. I just don't get that. Who do you think could qualify that's better than Julien? I don't think there is anybody. And look, he has won a Stanley Cup. He knows how to win. So, yeah, I think he's the right coach. He's fine for the young guys right now. Okay, on to the next question. From Joe. The next question is from Joe. And Joe asks a lot of questions. I love the fact that he comes into on Saturdays. I do my live stream, and Joe asks a lot of questions. It's good. And Joe, his name is not really Joe. His name, he put his name for Jonathan Drouin, his favorite player. So that's Joe. So Joe, should Paul Byron move into our top 6? Now, this was asked probably Wednesday or Thursday of last week. So they did it. He asked the question, and the next game, and I might have even told him that, yeah, it's happening in the comments, but I wanted to put the question in here because they did try, they put Byron up there, and he replaced Suzuki for those 3 games, but Byron really didn't respond. And it's unusual. It's not a knock on him because he usually does respond, but he didn't respond. And Suzuki did in the role that they put him in, so they made the switch. So I think they tried it, and it's not to say when they need a guy to fill in that Byron won't get that, but he didn't respond, and Suzuki did in the role he had, and the switch was, I think, called for and appropriate. And I don't think it's a knock on Byron. What Byron needs to do is say to himself, "I need to get better." Hopefully, this won't be the reason why they would trade Paul Byron, because there's been rumors talking about that there's teams interested in Paul Byron, and I'm hoping that his lack of responding on his promotion to the second line doesn't get him traded, because he may be in a bit of a slump, but it doesn't mean that down the road he's not going to be a very valuable player. Just currently, he's kind of treading water right now. So there are rumors out there that Paul Byron is on the block, or it's more that teams are inquiring about him. And since the question came in, I thought I would include it, even though they did in the last 3 games. That's what they did. They put him up there. Okay, so now we come to the next question is from I Keep Faith. Now, this is something interesting. He asks about a possible rule change that he would like to see. I think this is one of the ones I kind of edited down so I get it a little more clear. How about a rule change that would allow a team the option of a penalty shot? Maximum 1 goal by penalty shot per period. And I would say this. I wouldn't have put this in here if I didn't really... I kind of intrigued by the idea anyway. I don't think the NHL would allow 1 goal a period that way, but I could see one time a game. You could say, I want a penalty shot on that penalty. I think that's an interesting idea, actually. They're looking for more scoring and more excitement into the game, although I think the hockey is so good these days and so fast and so skilled. I don't know where they're talking there's not enough excitement, but I guess unfortunately that's on the American side more. I don't think that's a Canadian thing personally. I don't think we need excitement of that sort extra added too much to make us go to hockey games in Canada. That's for sure, right? It's intriguing. It's intriguing. It would definitely put the score up, because you'd have to figure if they allowed 1 per period. And there's a lot, you'd see a lot of games, there'd be at least 1 penalty shot a period. If it's not for one team only, but I think 1 a period might be too much, and 1 a game. I could really see 1 a game actually being something that they might consider anyway. I don't know. I like that idea. And interesting, any rule changes you guys would like to see, and you can come up with, leave any of those kind of ideas in the comment section, and I'll talk about them in the next podcast. Definitely, I think this is quite interesting, some of these things. So I thought this one would go on a little longer, but we're almost at 35 minutes. So I went through all the questions. I just want to double check to make sure I didn't miss anything. But yeah, I think I went through it. So listen, thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. This was really a lot of fun. I like the different style that it does, and I like that I get to answer questions you guys are particularly interested in, not just stuff I come up with. So please, if you have any ideas of any videos you'd like to see that I haven't covered yet, or stuff you'd like to see me cover, leave that in the comment section, and I'll definitely consider doing it. And if I can, and it's something that I think I can do at least a half decent job on, I'll definitely try to do those videos for you guys. And leave questions for next week. I need stuff for next week from you guys. What do you guys want to know about Habs? I don't want to really tackle the other teams because I don't follow them close enough that I can feel I can talk about anything I might know stuff here and there, but I don't think I could talk about anything in particular from a knowledgeable point of view. So I don't really want to do that. And then some would question that I'm talking now about the Habs, and it's not from a knowledgeable point of view. But that's okay. I understand. To each his own opinion, right? So I guess that's it. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. This was episode 2 of the Talking Habs live. No, not live. I always say that in my head. Talking Habs, the video podcast, episode 2 of hopefully many. It'll be every Wednesday. It might not come out at the same time during the day, so I apologize for that. My life sometimes can be hectic, but it'll be out every Wednesday. And hope you enjoyed it. Hope you'll come back for next week. And I did want to say this: next week's games, San Jose. Thursday. They're playing San Jose Thursday here in Montreal, and Toronto Saturday at home. And I'll just say this: Saturday's Saturday Hockey Talk will be after the game. So about roughly half an hour after the game. Depending, I might end up doing my review. If I can knock that out really quickly, I'll be on right after the review. And and it should be interesting because Montreal-Toronto is always an interesting game. Hopefully Montreal will win. They do go on to play Arizona next Wednesday, but depending on when you're going to watch, if you're going to watch the podcast next Wednesday, depending on when you watch it, they might have played. But I'll do it won't affect. But I just want to say next Wednesday they're playing those teams. And Vegas, back-to-backs, by the way, Wednesday, Thursday. So Arizona and Vegas, those are the next 4 games. And those are on the road, with San Jose and Toronto being here in Montreal. So that's it. I know I'm rambling. What can I do? So thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. I hope I see you for episode 3 of Talking Habs, the live. No, it's not. It's live. I always shoot live. Talking Habs, the video podcast. So go Habs, go. Go Habs, go. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next week.